Okay, 7:01. I think we ought to get started in the interest of time. Welcome everybody to the 5th community meeting for the Holmes Acres Historic Overlay District Study. This meeting is being held entirely virtually, and for your awareness, it's being recorded, and the recording will be posted on the county's webpage for the study. My name is Denise Dressel, and I'm the Principal Heritage Resource Planner with the Department of Planning and Development, and I've been the project manager for the past year for this study. And with me tonight is Mason District Supervisor Penny Gross. Also here tonight are many other staff team members who have been working on the project, including Lily Agazu, the Principal Planner in the Zoning Administration Division, Sarah Godfrey, the Communications Engagement Specialist in the Department of Planning and Development, Grace Davenport, the Heritage Resource Planner 2, Megan Riley, a Heritage Resource Planner Technician, and Laura Kaviclis, who recently joined the county as a Senior Heritage Resource Planner. I'd also like to acknowledge the work of the community work group members, Arvidas Barzdukas, Robert Capizzello, Keith Gardner, Nancy Garone, Matt Harris, David Heckman, Sarah Jablin, and Edith MacArthur. ARB members Samantha Wong and Kay Orr, and History Commission members Elise Murray, Barbara Peters, and Sue Kovacs-Schumann. Also special thanks to the ARB chairs Chris Daniel and former chair John Burns for their participation and assistance. Next slide, please. So tonight's meeting will be focused on providing the community with the results from the poll requested by the Holmes Acres Civic Association. I'm going to provide a very brief background to the study and the poll, and then I'll turn it over to Grace Davenport, who will walk us through the verification process and the poll results. There'll be an opportunity for questions and answers at the conclusion of the presentation, and I'll go over detailed instructions at that time. In the meantime, you can add your questions to the chat during the presentation, and staff will read them aloud during the Q&A. And then Supervisor Gross will provide closing remarks. Next slide, please. Thank you. In 2019, the Holmes Run Acres community presented then Providence Supervisor Linda Smith with a community-driven petition to initiate a study for a historic overlay district for the Holmes Run Acres neighborhood. At that time, the at the time of the board authorization, the neighborhood was in the Providence Supervisory District, and it's now in the Mason District. The petition showed that 72% of the homeowners supported this research initiative. As a result, on January 24th, 2020, the Board of Supervisors directed Fairfax County staff to consider the possible establishment of an HOD for Holmes Run Acres. The study area for the proposed district consists of the property shown on the map to the left. The board requested that, in addition to the potential comprehensive plan amendment, staff also draft a potential zoning ordinance amendment, as well as a rezoning application for the addition of the historic overlay district, if approved by the Board of Supervisors. In early 2020, a work group was formed composed of community members and ARB and History Commission representatives. Staff met with the work group 15 times over the course of around 2 years. We held 4 community-wide meetings during the study, the first in November of 2019, the second in March of 2021, and then the third and fourth in July and August of this past summer, 2022. During the 2 community meetings that were held this past summer, staff presented the preliminary findings of the research, as well as the draft design guidelines for the potential HOD. The preliminary findings included an analysis of the current land use and site conditions of the neighborhood, a description of the structures under consideration and their historic and architectural significance, the identification of character-defining features to be preserved, and the identification of properties as either contributing or non-contributing to the historic character of the proposed district. We also made a preliminary recommendation of the proposed boundary for a potential HOD for the zoning map, as shown here in the map to the right. Recordings of all the workgroup meetings, as well as the March 2021 community meeting and the August 2022 presentation of the preliminary findings, can be found on the Holmes Run Acres study webpage. Next slide, please. Thank you. Through the work group members, the Holmes Run Acres Civic Association requested that Fairfax County staff conduct a poll to gauge the community's continued support for the creation of the proposed historic overlay district. Staff created a website which contained the background information for the historic overlay district study, the preliminary findings, including those items that I just described, and the most recent draft of the design guidelines. All of this information preceded the poll questions. Respondents had to page through the information to get to the questions. Staff worked with the workgroup members to formulate the poll questions and the timeline. The poll was open from August 1st to September 9th. A postcard was mailed to every property owner within the proposed boundaries of the historic overlay district. A second reminder postcard was mailed out about halfway through the poll's response period. Input to the poll was received in either virtually through the poll webpage or through a mail-in ballot upon request. Staff verified the responses and conducted some basic analysis. I'm now going to turn the presentation over to Heritage Resource Planner Grace Davenport to talk about the verification process and the poll results.
Thanks, Denise, for that introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Grace, Heritage Resource Planner 2 with Fairfax County. And tonight I'm going to walk through the staff methodology for processing the poll results and present the final numbers. So let's just jump right in. Included within the proposed boundary are 343 tax map parcels. The poll received 306 responses. Out of those, 242 responses were verified by Department of Planning and Development staff. I'll go more into the verification process on the next slide. The poll had a verified response rate of 70.6%. And next slide, please. Staff researched each of the 306 responses received to make sure that the response itself could be verified. Staff's definition of a verified response is a response that met 3 criteria. First, the address must exist within the proposed boundaries. Second, the responder's name needed to be the same as the legal owner of the property. Staff used the Fairfax County Department of Tax Administration's records to verify legal owners. Third, there could only be one response per parcel. If a person owns more than one parcel within the proposed boundaries, that person was entitled to as many responses as parcels owned. If a person fitting this criteria did not cast additional responses themselves, staff manually entered a second or third response based on the person's singular response. If the response received did not meet these 3 criteria, it was considered to be null. Next slide, please. There were 64 null responses. 36 were unverifiable. This meant that either the name of the respondent did not match the tax records as the legal owner of the property, or the property was not located within the proposed boundaries. Next, there were 10 responses that were categorized as duplicates, meaning that they were verified by staff, but that they exceeded the 1 response per parcel criteria. In the instance of duplicates, one of the responses was considered verified and was counted, and the other was considered to be null. The third category contained 16 responses that were both duplicates and unverified, meaning that an unverified participant set a response for a property that had already had a response from the legal owner. There was one instance where 2 property owners of the same residence were both verified but had conflicting responses. So both of these were counted as null. Next slide, please. So let's dig into each of the poll questions and the responses received. The first question on the poll was, how informed do you feel about the potential historic overlay district for Holmes Run Acres? Participants could use this sliding scale to make their vote. The left of the scale is the option for being not informed. On the right of the scale is the option for being very informed. Participants could choose any point within this range. Next slide, please. Each point on the scale was assigned a value between 1 and 100. Values 0 to 25 meant the participant did not feel informed. Values 26 to 50 meant the participant felt somewhat informed. Values 51 to 75 meant the participant felt informed. And values 76 to 100 meant the participant felt very informed. 51 people did not respond to the question. So for visual clarity, this pie chart only breaks down the 191 verified responses that did respond to the question. As you can see from the pie chart, 90% of people who responded to the question felt either informed or very informed, with 53.4% of people feeling very informed. Next slide, please. The second question of the poll was, do you support the establishment of a historic overlay district for the Holmes Run Acres neighborhood? Poll participants could have responded in one of four ways, with yes, no, no opinion, or by skipping the question. Staff analyzed the responses for quantity and percentage, rounded to the nearest tenth. Next slide, please. No's were the majority with 127 responses, or 52.5%. There were 109 yeses, or 45%. There were 5 responses where the participant did not answer the question, and there was 1 response of no opinion. Next slide, please. Staff completed an exercise to determine if the question 2 outcome would remain the same if all responses, both null and verified, were counted. The pie chart on the left is the same from the previous slide. The pie chart on the right shows the trend of all responses. As you can see on the all responses pie chart, the majority of responses would still be no at 53.6%, with the yes responses at 42.8%. 2.9% of participants did not respond, and 0.7% of the responses were no opinion. Next slide, please. The third and final question that the poll asked was, the original Holmes Run Acres home models are under 25 feet tall. The current and proposed zoning regulations allow homes to be up to 35 feet tall in the R3 zoning district. Would you support consideration of an allowable building height less than 35 feet in Holmes Run Acres? Poll participants could have responded in one of 4 ways. Yes, no, no opinion, or by skipping the question. Staff analyzed these responses for quantity and percentage and rounded to the nearest tenth. Next slide, please. The majority of responses were yes, with 108 responses at 44.6%. The no responses totaled 103 at 42.6%. 11.2% of participants had no opinion, and 1.7% did not answer the question. Next slide, please. Like for question 2, staff completed an exercise to determine if the outcome would remain the same if all the responses, both null and verified, were counted. The pie chart on the left is the same from the previous slide, while the pie chart on the right shows the trend of all responses. As you can see on the all responses pie chart, the majority of responses were yes at 42.8%, with the no responses closely following at 42.5%. 11.4% of participants had no opinion, and 3.3% of respondents skipped the question. At this point, I'm going to turn the presentation back over to Denise.
Thanks, Grace. Thank you, Lily. Finally, at the end of the poll, we provided an opportunity for folks to respond with open-ended comments. Next slide, please. Of the 306 responses received, 135 comments were submitted. So not everyone commented. This word cloud includes comments from all responses, both verified and null. It's an automated visual representation of common words included in all the comments submitted. There were a few categories that we manually collapsed. For instance, the category neighborhood includes words neighborhood and community, and design guidelines includes words design guidelines and guidelines. The sentiment of the comments we receive range from negative to neutral to positive. However, the word cloud does not represent sentiment of the comment. It simply represents the frequency of words or concepts. Beyond Fairfax County, HOD and HRA, a few of the most frequently used words were style, property, McMansions, character, design guidelines, and neighborhood. Next slide, please. Thank you. So now we've reached the end of our presentation, and we'll turn to your questions. Laura Kaviclis is going to read the questions which have already been submitted through the chat. If there's a question that are similar or repeated, she'll go ahead and group those questions together. If you want to ask a question, please do so by typing your question directly into the chat function. You'll find the chat function either at the top right corner or at the bottom of your screen, depending on which type of app you're using. You should see a dialog box, which is just a little bubble. If you click on that, a box will open and you can type your question into the box and Laura will read your question. To ask a question verbally, please raise your hand and use the raised hand function, which you'll find again, either at the top of your screen or at the bottom of your screen. Sometimes it looks like a raised hand. Sometimes it looks like a little person with a hand waving. So if you click on that, Megan will unmute you and you'll have the floor to ask your question. If you would just remember to lower your hand once your question is finished. And for those who are calling in, if you press *5, that will raise and lower your hand and we'll be able to unmute you and you can ask your question at that time. So in general, if you could remember to keep your mic muted when you don't have the floor, just to cut down on background noises. So with that, if there are any questions, I think there might be one.
Only one question so far, Denise. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. What happens now? Does this mean the HOD project is over?
So I'd like to let Supervisor Gross address that, but I'm wondering if there are any questions about the poll, questions about the answers, the verification process, any technical questions?
We've got a hand raised. One
Oh.
second.
I wonder.
Oh, we've got a few. Okay. So we'll start.
Maybe,
Oh, wait, Megan, just a second. I'm sorry, Supervisor Gross.
I'm wondering if perhaps trying to type in a question into the chat may be a little too complicated for some. And I'm wondering if maybe folks could just raise their hands instead of trying to type in the questions. We're a little ahead of schedule, so we might give a little bit of time to those who actually want to ask a question who are attending virtually but not calling users. Just a suggestion.
Yes, no, absolutely, definitely. I think we have 3 people who have raised their hands already, so that's a great idea. So Megan.
So I'll just go down the line with what I see on my list. So I didn't see who came up first. So the person who's calling in, you should be unmuted now on the phone.
there's a call. Do you have the number?
Well, I did. 703-298-8836.
I see them muted. Let me see if I could unmute them. Oh, your mic is enabled.
I enabled the mic, so if
Yeah.
for the caller with the 70328 number, press *6 to mute and unmute yourself.
Okay, I think I see your mic is unmuted. Can you? Yes, we hear you.
Okay, this work.
Yes.
Hi, this is Harry Jones. Should I make a comment now or?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm owner of 3404 Hemlock Drive. And I was just, as you were talking about the comment section, it was interesting, but I kind of lost what was provided at that point.
Sure.
Do
Lily,
you have a feel for what? Do you have
the
a feel
comments?
for what? Yes.
Yeah. Can we go back to that slide? There we go. Oh, wait, one more. There we go. Whoop, nope. There we go. Okay, can you see that?
No, I'm calling you on the telephone.
Oh, you're calling, so you can't see it. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yes, the largest number, I'll just read this aloud. There were two with 62 responses who mentioned the words HOD or neighborhood, keeping in mind that neighborhood was collapsed with community, so community or neighborhood. And then the second largest was HRA, so that would be Holmes Run Acres. The next that I see are is style with 32, Fairfax County with 30, design guidelines with 27, property.
What was the intent of this comment section?
It was open-ended.
I think
Sure.
it should be obvious, but
Yeah.
go ahead.
So yeah, it was an open-ended question. Just if you wanted to comment either positively or negatively or just neutral, just leave your comments about, could have been a comment about the process or about the study itself, or so it was just, we just felt that we wanted to give you all a visual representation of what your neighbors were saying to us as well. So these are sort of the concerns, either positive or negative. These are the words that came up the most in your comments.
Yeah, but positive or negative. But
right.
I still don't know what the comment said. I don't mean I won't read them. I mean that it's you have counted the hits on a particular word, but I don't know if that was negative or positive.
That's correct. We did not evaluate the sentiment.
Denise, this is Penny Gross again. And I think to the caller's point, this is a graphic representation of the commentary. I think what some people would like to see or have access to is all of the comments, the narrative of the comments rather than just the bubbles of the comments. Sure. So we may want to address that.
Sure, no, and that makes perfect sense. And we're happy to post all of the comments online with this presentation, after the presentation. So we can also, we will also be posting the presentation and this recording, the meeting recording on the webpage. Is that helpful? Okay. Yeah, I mean, there were 135 comments. So we just were looking for a way of, visually representing that without, going through each comment. Yeah.
Okay. Before I get off, I do have one more comment.
Sure.
I believe the way we've gone through this, the no's have it. Is that the end of this, or?
Yeah,
I frankly was very much against it.
So I'd like to let Supervisor Gross speak to that, but I'd also like to get through some of the other questions about the survey and the results before we get to the end
Sure.
and the next steps. But we will be addressing that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Should I go ahead and do another caller? It looks like a lot of the comments are in the chat are sort of just reiterating what's being said on the phone.
Okay, sure, yes.
All right, we'll go with the next one. Dick Prosser, you should now have access to your microphone if you want to unmute.
Mr. Prosser. So again, either at the top of your screen or at the bottom, there should be a microphone with a line through it. And if you click on that, it will unmute you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Denise, you and I talked a couple of weeks ago, but my name is Dick Prosser and I'm representing the owners at 7506, 7510, 12, and 14 Masonville Drive, which is outside the boundaries of the overlay. And the question that I had too, but you said you'd get to it later, was whether this was going to go forward or not. But I just wanted to confirm that the folks outside, the property owners that are outside that overlay district, aren't going to be impacted directly by the provisions of the overlay district.
Yes, that's correct. Let's see, Lily, can you go to the second to last slide, please? So there was some confusion about this, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to clear this up. Keep going. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Next slide, and one more. There we go. Oh, nope, too far. One more back. There we go. Nope. Sorry. There, stop. Yeah, adjacent properties. So there was some confusion about this, and as I said, I'm glad to have an opportunity to clear this up. So there was some misinformation and just some confusion out there in the community. There is no archaeological review or consultation required for building permits or by right development for properties adjacent to the historic overlay district. So I'm just reading the slide, but for example, if a property owner adjacent to a historic overlay district proposes to add a deck to their home, a building permit would be required, and we would never see it. The ARB would never see it, and there would be no archaeological work required. For properties that are adjacent to HODs, archaeological consultation is only required for rezonings, development plans, special exceptions, special permits, or variances where there is 2,500 square feet of land disturbance, which is part of the normal development review process. So the archaeology and collections branch review is part of the county's normal development review process for rezonings, development plans, special exceptions, special permits. The Archaeological and Collections Branch, ACB, we call them, is one of many county agencies which review development proposals such as these. So there's really nothing different for properties that are adjacent to historic overlay districts. And
Okay.
I'm hoping that clarifies things for people.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for your question.
Laura, is there a question in the chat on your end?
Laura says no. Okay.
No? Okay. I'll just elevate the next person. Patrick Lutali, apologies if I mispronounce, and your mic should now be allowed.
He had to step out for a few moments, but he should be back. You can skip him for now. Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
We'll move on to the next one. Rob Guest, your mic should be allowed.
So we just see you as Rob. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Okay. My wife actually raised our hand inadvertently, but my question is, why are we doing this online? Why is this not being done in person?
That there's a couple of reasons for that. One was the timing of it. We wanted to get the community poll results back to the community as quickly as possible. And we had a change in our date. And then to find a venue that would hold the crowd that we were anticipating, it was just going to be too difficult. And then the other contributing factor to that was that over the summer, we held a community meeting in person and ended up having to hold a second one virtually. So we thought we would just, rather than move this date into November, which we really didn't want to do, we just went ahead and did it virtually.
So you're saying there were so many people at the first meeting in person that you had to have a virtual meeting to accommodate more people?
Sort of, yes. We could have pushed it to push the date off to get a bigger venue. We would have had to push the date off to get a bigger venue.
I thought the venue at Woodburn was fine.
I think there was some concern about it being crowded, tight, a tight fit.
It was crowded.
Yeah, given the COVID considerations.
Yeah, I felt the first presentation was not what I had hoped for. I don't think I didn't get a good sense of what the design considerations were going to be, and I thought there was too much emphasis on process and not much on the meat of what we're going to do. And I just, I don't think this online presentation is helping that. I was a big supporter in the beginning. We were both big supporters of the HOD, and I can see a lot of people have turned against it. And I think that's unfortunate, because I think part of it has to do with just the way the county's handled this. So I'm sorry. I'm glad you're doing it online, but I wish it had been different.
Well, thank you for your comment. I appreciate that.
Laura, anything on your end? Nope. All right. I think Patrick Latali's back, so I'll make the mic allowable. Patrick, you should have access to your mic now.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I couldn't figure out the icons here. So I'm kind of curious with the numbers. I had posted a question in here that the process to do the study required 70% interest to move forward. And I'm wondering what the criteria is to continue moving forward. I believe that 70% interest should be the standard, but I don't know what the answer is. So I'm curious. I have heard that the county could still move forward with less than a majority of interested participants. So I'm just wondering if you could discuss that a bit and what that means. But 70% was required for the study, and what is the threshold now?
Sure. I think that would be part of the next steps discussion. And I'm sure that Supervisor Gross will address that, but I'm going to hold off on making any comment until that discussion, if that's okay.
No, that's definitely fine. I would like to hear it, because there is concern. Because I mean, as I posted in the chat room, 5 to 10 votes in a small neighborhood like this can make a world of difference. So you're talking 1 to 3 bodies swinging a decision one way or another. And so I think it's important to understand that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Thank you for your comment. Okay. Again, anybody else? No. Okay.
There's interest in discussing the next steps now, so if there's any questions that follow that, we can answer those. So
Great.
That's what I'm
Okay.
hearing, at least.
Thanks. Well, that's all the information that we had to present to you all, and we do appreciate all of your comments. As I said, we'll post this presentation, we'll post this meeting recording, and we'll post a table of all of the comments in addition to this presentation within the next week or so. The presentation and the comments should go up tomorrow, but the recording sometimes takes a little while to get posted, maybe within a week though. And now I'm going to turn it over to Supervisor Gross. I think we're going to stop sharing our screen though, so we can see Supervisor Gross. There we go. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Denise, and thank you to county staff for all their work on the HOD. You know, Holmes Run Acres is a lovely leafy neighborhood of mid-century homes inside the Beltway. We all know that. And we've also learned that Holmes Run Acres has owners who obviously care about their properties, as well as their property rights as Virginians. Earlier this year, when most of the Woodburn voting precinct, which includes Holmes Run Acres, was assigned to the Mason District as a result of the changes required by the 2020 decennial census, I was briefed by county staff about the HRA HOD process in February, because when a magisterial district boundary changes, all the land use issues, land use matters that were in there in that particular area before get automatically transferred to the new district. As I understand it from discussions, the original catalyst for the HOD was construction of 2 new large homes on properties that previously had smaller structures on them. As with many established neighborhoods, new structures generate a lot of conversation, as well as fear about change. That is not unusual. What is unusual is that HRA qualified for historic status at other government levels, but that designation of historic does not offer the kind of protection from development that some residents were seeking. So enter the Historic Overlay District program, which has been used in Fairfax County to a certain extent. The one that probably has received the most publicity is the Holland Hills HOD, which is a little different than Holmes Run Acres. So as you know, since early 2020, county staff has been working on facets of an HOD, what protections it might offer, how it would be implemented, and the challenges it might provide to homeowners and to the county. You know that a consultant was hired to help establish written design guidelines for the HOD. A community working group was formed. There was extensive outreach to the community, written communications, in-person meetings, virtual meetings because of the pandemic, numerous phone calls and emails, and not including some of the largest freedom of information requests I've ever seen in my time on the Board of Supervisors. As county staff continued to work with both the community and the consultant, the work group asked that a poll be prepared so the community members could register their support or non-support of the HOD idea. As you've heard from staff, the poll was in the field, as they say, for about 6 weeks and received a lot of responses. I was really pleased to see that there were so many responses from the community. All of those were verified by staff and reported to you tonight. There was significant response from those property owners, but as noted, there was not significant support for the HOD. In fact, the community continues to be split almost right down the middle. My office has received petitions demanding an end to the process. We've also received requests to pause the process for a few months so that advocates can regroup and develop more support. There was a question in the chat about, does this end? Staff cannot unilaterally tell the Board of Supervisors, we're stopping this. There has to be additional actions by the board. Staff could try that, but it would not bode well for staff. The lack of community support after more than a couple of years of outreach and effort by everyone involved leads me to believe that further work or a pause would not be advisable at this time. Although a staff recommendation has yet to be made and published, neither the Planning Commission nor the Board of Supervisors would be inclined to put the HOD on their agendas for action anytime soon. The extensive HOD research done by staff and the consultants can be retained. And if there is future community consensus to revisit the establishment of an HOD for Holmes Run Acres, the process could be restarted by another authorization by the Board of Supervisors at an appropriate time. In order to stop this process at this particular point, which I do intend to do, I will make a board matter at a future board meeting before the end of the year that removes the authorization that the board adopted 2 years ago. And so that staff is no longer going to have this on their work plan. There will have to be a new authorization at an appropriate time. There's been a lot of emotion and a lot of angst about an HOD, but I'm confident that we all learned a lot in the process. Community, staff, member of the Board of Supervisors, and I especially appreciate getting to know the new residents of Mason District through this process. I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any, but that is my intent because quite frankly, the community is split down the middle and there really is not support at this point for the HOD. Thank you. Are there any questions, comments?
Thank you, Supervisor Gross. Megan, can you, can you,
Yep.
Thank you.
Dick, your mic should have access now.
I do want to reiterate that all of the work that's been done, including design guidelines and everything else, can be retained. It will not be discarded. All of that work done by staff, because there's been a lot of investment to work on all of the details of an HOD. We can retain all of that so that should the idea come forward again, we've got the institutional memory.
My is just a comment, Denny. My wife was a resident of Holmes Run for many years, had a lovely home there, and it's a very unique and wonderful neighborhood. And I was dismayed, even though I wasn't a resident there, that so many homes were being remodeled or rebuilt that didn't match the character of the neighborhood. And for years, I lived in Truro, and they adhered to the principle of community appearance a lot. But I think you're right. I think if in a situation like this where you have such a divided neighborhood, a majority slight against it, to go forward with it would just probably create more displeasure than anything else. So I would agree with your action for what that's worth. Thank you.
I see that there's something in the chat that says we'd be putting a motion before the board to officially end the HOD process. I will be working with staff to do the appropriate language that would end the authorization, would pull the authorization for staff to continue the work. And there are probably some legal there's some legal language that I would have to do, so I'm not prepared to make the motion at tomorrow's board meeting. It'll be either later in November or at the December board meeting. Anyone else?
I'm not seeing anybody.
Denise, before we conclude, and give people some of their evening back. I want to thank the community and the staff. You know, these are difficult situations sometimes to navigate. When you bring up a new idea to your neighbors, sometimes you get lots of support, and other times it's like, no. But I think that the community discussion was very good. I was troubled a bit by some of the commentary about the architecture review board and the staff. There was some potential ethics charges that were attempted, and I thought that was terribly unfair to licensed professionals who are doing a volunteer job for the county. And so I'm hoping that future conversations will focus on a more positive approach. But we cannot fault staff or the consultant for not putting every ounce of energy into this effort, because the Board of Supervisors authorized it, and because they wanted to be able to respond in as much detail as possible to the community questions. And as I said, you know, we all learned a lot in the process. I learned an awful lot about HOD's design guidelines, and also the concerns that in some cases you are very, very specific about your own property, and then others it's a broader piece of the community. But I don't think there was any question that was raised that wasn't addressed. May not have been the response that the questioner wanted, but they were all addressed. And so when all the comments are published, I really look forward to seeing those too. So I think that, you know, we came out in a place that perhaps was not anticipated when this effort started back in 2019, but it's not for lack of a lot of effort to uncover absolutely every piece that needed to be uncovered. And so I see in the chat, yes, fair and balanced approach. Yes, thank you very much to staff, very much so, and to the community.
Got another hand up, so I'll give Patrick access to his microphone, and you're good to speak, Patrick. Or Patrick, you probably need to unmute yourself if you're talking. I only gave you access to your mic.
So if you look at either the top of your screen or the bottom, there should be a microphone, an icon that looks like a microphone with a line through it. And if you just click on that, that will unmute your mic. Perhaps you could put your question in the chat. If you can't get yourself unmuted. See a new message. Oh, Patrick's computer is frozen. Okay. Oh wait, I see your mic's unmuted. Okay. There is one other person with their hand raised. Megan, do you see that?
Uh, 703-298. You're good to hit *6 to unmute.
So Patrick, I see your mic is unmuted now. I don't know if you can. No. Okay. We're not having very much luck here.
Well, Denise, if anybody has additional questions or comments, they can always send it by email to you and staff or to mason@fairfaxcounty.gov so that it can be incorporated into the permanent record.
That's correct. Exactly. Yeah. And you can go to the study webpage, and my email address is on that study webpage. And again, it's Denise Dressel. So you'll be able to find me and of course reach out to Supervisor Gross. Okay, I see a chat. I can't speak. There are too many people. Oh, no problem. Okay. All right. Well, if I don't know if that's everybody, so these are the two people that we have not been able to get their feedback from with their hands raised. So I think that might be it. Well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your time in the 2 years that. Oh wait, I hear somebody. Is this 70329? Yes. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to Supervisor Gross for her involvement in this, and we look forward to the next steps. And thanks very much.
Thank you. Appreciate the comment. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up and give everybody 7 minutes back in their night, and please do get in touch with me if you have further questions, or Supervisor Gross as well.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.